Thank you for staying with us. As I said earlier, we look into the life and times of the man Muhammadu Buhari, an autobiography of his, that was presented to the public by his family, that was written by, the cerebral Dr. Charles Omole. But it's a family account, their own account of the man Muhammadu Buhari, and it was authored by Dr. Katch Onanuju, and he spoke, this won't be the first autobiography, about the man Muhammadu Buhari. But then, this is more like an expanded view, especially coming from notable family members led by the wife, Aisha Buhari. And it was presented, 2 days ago in Lagos, in Abuja rather, that had many persons, especially those who work with the man Muhammad Buhari. The president was there as well, and he spoke on the matter. Now, going through the book and some of those things that were said at the launching of the book, public presentation, raised so many questions. In fact, the man who authored the book, Dr. Katch Onanuju, talked and raised so many questions, in which he said, can be found in the book. But let me put this caveat there. This is not, publicity or advertisement stunt for the book, but it's just about how it resonates. Some of those questions that the author raised, and some of those things that the family members talked about, and some of those statements attributed to those who worked with him, shaped Buhari's time in office, and maybe by extension, some of the things we are grappling with as a nation right now. Mrs. Buhari talked about how a particular group of people, powerful people, who some of them were maybe family members and associates of the late Buhari, took over. They were called the cabal. Remember, the word cabal was very popular under the Buhari administration, and took over even his family affairs, to the extent that he said at the time she, as the first lady, was locked out. The husband, Muhammadu Buhari, was convinced to the extent that the man suspected that she, Aisha, wanted to kill him at some point. And people took, his trust to be more like a weakness, and to the extent that he couldn't even sack some, ministers who served with him, some of them who were close to him, just because he believed if he sacked them, it might reinvent, it might speak, to the belief that some people had of him when he was in the military, that he is high-handed, so rather leave them to do whatever they want to do. Hopefully, they will improve that which didn't happen. I will allow you to have, we have some clips on this matter, but first, some of those things that the author, some of the questions that you raised. Stay with us.
What was wrong with Buhari when he was sick in the 2017-2018 years? The answer is in the book. What were the internal intrigues behind the sack of Lawal Daura as DSS boss? The answer is in the book. What was the role of the cabal in shaping the Buhari presidency? Why did they fight his family to a standstill? The answer is in the book. What was the plan of the cabal for the APC presidential primaries before it was thwarted just a few hours before the event? By the way, Mr. President, the cabal wanted somebody else to win that primary. The details are in the book. How was the CBN captured by the cabal? The answer is in the book. Was Buhari's signature forged? Was there a signature stamp? Did somebody assign his signature? The answer is in the book. Why did Buhari resort, and this is one of those strange revelations you'll find in the book, why did Buhari resort to conversing with his family with pen and paper in his office? Because he said his office was bugged. Who bugged the office of the president? The answer is in the book. Was Buhari office and bedroom bugged? The answer is in the book. Why was it that several people gave account of Buhari about to give a speech and found out that the speech he approved was not the speech he was given. It's been swapped several times. The answer is in the book. What were Buhari's instructions during the NSAS? The answer is in the book. And finally, what killed President Buhari in July 2025? The answer is in the book. Personally,
of course, so many questions raised, from that book by the author. By the way, I repeat, it was, in fact, at the entrance of that particular occasion in Abuja, there was a banner, flex banner of the family saying, "We'll welcome you." So it was an account, an intention of the Buhari family, at least this nuclear family, to write something about their father. And of course, it was authored by the cerebral and Dr. Charles Amole. We have joining us today virtually a policy analyst and the DG at the Heritage Center in Abuja, somebody who has spoken on the man Buhari and some of the things that happened under him. Maybe we might have another angle to the man Buhari, as we're hearing right now. Dr. Katch Onanuju, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an interesting angle from the family. I can tell you this is just the beginning, because you're going to see more of this.
All right.
It's also very important that the family is speaking up now.
Yeah.
Because we are currently nationally having...
Yeah, let's kick it off from here. I'm sure you've followed the man Buhari, because we have had the conversation about him, some of the things that happened under him, the kind of person he was, and maybe some of those things that people attributed to him, his leadership style, his personality. Now, how important do you think it is at this time? The book is named From Soldier to Statesman. It was clearly written, and you saw some of those accounts, a 600-page book that, anybody really who have and lay their hands on. Mr. President was there. Some of the people that worked with him was there. The First Lady was there. Aisha was there. His children were there. I mean, Buhari's children, his grandchildren were there. Meaning, this was a family effort. How important do you think it is for this book? And you remember, I'm sure you know, this is not the first biography that has been written about Buhari. Garba Shehu wrote a particular one less than a year ago, 6 months ago. I think Femi Adesina wrote something like that as well. Now, this is an account of the family. How important do you think it is for the family, having allowed everyone to write about their father? They're coming out at this time to say, from soldier to statesman, a biography of the man, Muhammadu Buhari. How important is it? Why are they coming out this time?
It is important because this is about the very first pushback. What Adesina and Garba Shehu wrote were just nonsense. They were all peripheral, and none of them attacked the fact, because Garba Shehu and Femi Adesina are afraid of speaking to the fact that you have seen Aisha speak to in this book. And this is the thing that Nigerians need to know. We are right now having a post-mortem of the Buhari years. So we know, yes, because of Buhari's installation of a jihad, we saw what the jihad brought. But the most telling one is Buhari's use of a policy of do not engage. We may not know who brought that policy to bear, whether it is a cabal or it is Buhari that, started that policy of do not engage. Suddenly, the militias who were doing the jihad became like they are invisible. No, they are not invisible. Look at now, the first period of reversal of that policy of do not engage. You've seen that our military are capable and have the ability to actually beat back on any militia group. But this is just the beginning of these confessions. what I would say, you're going to hear those from the cabal, because very soon you'll see people start pointing hand at, you did this, you didn't do that, you stole this, you didn't steal that, you are the person who said this, Buhari didn't say that. People, you will hear stories like, you signed the signature because there's a signature stamp, Buhari didn't sign the signature. So we have now started to go down into the nitty-gritty of the direct reactions from the families, and I will also say the people close to Buhari in regards to Nigeria starting Buhari's post-mortem. All we have done is to say, fine, the jihad that resulted in the genocide across the country, but Tinubu didn't start it. Tinubu's problem is, what did you do about it? And then when you saw that Buhari's policy of heading and looking after the indigenous people in IDP camps, whereas allowing the invaders who have taken over this land to continue to stay in those stolen lands. Buhari didn't do anything. Tinubu, you didn't do anything. So that's why you see, you cannot say the government is not complicit. This is the beginning of what I would say a post-mortem. And there's nothing wrong with the family now trying to say things to defend Buhari. We're going to hear more. And I bet you will hear more.
Dr. Katch, having heard from the author of that book, Dr. Charles Somoli, you heard from that video how he was saying that, or alluding to the fact that there are several answers, to some probing questions, in the Buhari administration that would be found in that book. Now, speaking about the fact that the president himself was not even a free man as the #1 citizen of the country. You were talking about the fact that Nigeria was even captured, but was the president himself not captured? Speaking to the fact that in his office, in his bedroom at the Aso Villa, he had no privacy. There was no secrecy. He had to employ the use of pen and paper to communicate with his own immediate family right there in his own office. Speaking to porosity in that administration, let's talk about how porous, how weak that administration was before we even get to the part about being accountable. Let's talk about how porous that administration was, that the president himself was held captive in his room, in his bedroom, and in his office.
We are talking about Nigeria having a criminal enterprise acting as a government. And you're not seeing people say, no, Buhari is not responsible for the criminality of the assembled enterprise called government. We are, as I said earlier, just at the very beginning of that post-mortem. Now, you're not going to talk about who is captured or who's not captured. As far as I'm concerned, they were all collectively in it. Buhari gave us the impression he was in charge, but when you ask him things, he will tell you, I'm not aware. I'm not aware. So who are the people who are aware? That's why President Tinubu must show that he is not part of that probably criminal arrangement that captured Nigeria and then unleashed this genocide upon the country, which, if you ask me, yes, you can see everywhere now, Muslim leaders, Sanusi, everybody calling Christians to try to make peace, to try to be together for the Christians, for, to talk up people. That's just medicine after death. You stayed back, and thousands were killed, massacred, and their homes were taken, and foreigners were living on their land. Until now, none of you could return those indigenous people back to their ancestral homes that were seized. No, instead, you were all convincing Tinubu, telling him that Buhari was okay in managing indigenous peoples in IDP camp, whereas the invaders who stole the land, all of you are trying to protect and trying to keep them on the stolen land. This is where all of them will have to account. It's either they are complicit in this genocide, or they will tell us why they did nothing while the indigenous people were in IDP camps. And as I speak to you, the land grabbers and thieves who kill people are on the ancestral lands and homes of these people. This is a big question Nigeria must ask itself. And the earlier we start to answer that question and to find answers to it, the better. Because what the lady is talking about is, my husband was even not in charge. Good. Buhari was not in charge. Who was in charge?
All right,
that is something for President Tinubu to tell us.
Dr. Katch,
Yes.
at this point, I'd like to ask you, from the point I jotted down here, that to what extent, how does this align with Buhari's campaign promise of meritocracy and zero tolerance for inefficiency? Speaking to the fact that in that book, it was, talking about the fact that the answer to the fact that his signature was forged. Speaking to that effect, do you think that at this point, in a Senate climb, people, that were found complicit or that would be found complicit in this should not be arrested, and especially, having a probe into the Buhari administration at this point, because a whole administration, talking about a lot of sabotage in that particular administration, do they owe it to Nigerians to have heads rolling, people being, put behind bars from all of these revelations now coming from the book?
Yes, we are discussing how a criminal organization captured statecraft. That's what we're talking about. And that's why the Americans have told Tinubu, get on your horse and do something in 60 days. We are watching you. Some people in the administration have come to say, no, we can't put them on trial in public. We can't try them in public. Whether you try them in secrecy or you try them anywhere, interrogate. Nigerians want to hear. We're not going to sweep this under the carpet. Lives were lost. The country was destroyed. Our army was destroyed. We are now talking about how do we reclaim back Nigeria. Not only that, some also in Afghanistan style infused terrorists into the army. They called it de-radicalization. So you infuse the terrorists into the army. We can see what's going on since then. So you also need to find a way to extract those terrorists that were infused into the army, because at the end of the day, look at what that kind of thing did in Afghanistan. It ended up collapsing and melting the security services without anybody shooting a gun. We need to find out whose policy that was. Of course, you can see the early names mentioned, very top people from Buratai to Malami. These are the people, and yet they went on to charge other people from the east of terrorism. And they were the same people who were actually funding terrorism. Look at the names that have come from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. You won't see any Igbo man's name on that list. These are the people funding terrorism all over the country.
Well,
yet,
till today, Dr. Katch, that list was never made public, so we wouldn't know whose names, will be on that list, actually.
I have seen the list. I have seen the list.
We haven't.
I have seen the list. Yes, I have.
All right.
You don't have to, because Nigerian government will want to expose it. I have seen the list are up to 400 names from United Arab Emirates, from Qatar, and from Saudi Arabia. I have seen the list.
All right.
So the government don't want to expose the list. I better we will want to see that list. Yes.
On this matter, of course, but we would love to do that, but that will be after now. Now, there is a particular word that was, overtly used under Buhari as the word is cabal. Cabal. I like you. And two questions for me now, because so many questions are going to be coming out from this. But the first is, who are these cabals actually? Because Aisha Buhari and some of those who spoke, by virtue of this biography, rather, I said autobiography earlier. Thank you for the correction, Talk. But his biography now is, it looked like the man was lethargic, and he came. I like the fact that Temitope said the campaign promises was about integrity, anti-corruption, the man having a strong stance and a very opinionated person to do what is right. But at the end of the day, so many persons would describe Buhari as a lethargic person who allowed many things to go under him. And in one of these accounts, Aisha Buhari was quoted to have said that you know, when some persons were being named to say they are not performing, please let these people go, or some people are doing terrible things under you. And he said, Buhari said, because of advancement of his age and sensitivity to the dictator label from his 1980s military rule, it made him wary of being seen as ruthless. And there was a quote here, or there is a quote, as you age, performance changes. And she added that some aides learn to exploit this hesitation using cautionary cliches to reinforce his reluctance. And he said, even if a man hits, in parentheses now, if he can still deliver 50%, keep him. But if he both eats and cannot perform, then he must go, and all of those things. And when asked to step aside for investigation, you know, we'll get to that. Now, the first question for me is, and I'd like you to share, you know, evidence-based analysis to this. Who are these cabals that took over, allegedly took over the government of the man Muhammadu Buhari? Because they were said, you know, to be that powerful that at a time, Aisha Buhari, remember, had to leave the villa for them. There was a video, remember, that has to do with one of the Daura's daughters or so, in which she allegedly locked out the first lady from, you know, some of those residences in the villa. I remember Aisha Buhari had to leave for the Dubai. For almost a year, actually, she left. Who were they, or who are they?
Well, one thing you must understand is about Buhari. Buhari was fundamentally a dishonest man. He was, you were deceived. I was not deceived. We know who he was. If you listen to the words of Tinubu, before Tinubu converted and started working with Buhari, he said that the man is an irredeemable Sharia-driven person that will bond the country, give him power. But later on, Tinubu changed and started working with Buhari.
Did Tinubu say that?
I'm trying to remind you that Buhari, oh yes, he did. Check from the time before he started working with Buhari. I'm trying to tell you now, from what I know, Buhari was fundamentally a dishonest man. He was just irredeemably incompetent. There is no way you could talk about Buhari did this, Buhari didn't do that. Buhari just was irredeemably incompetent. So no matter the lies he tells you during campaign, we knew him to be a fundamentally dishonest person. But he then showed Buhari that he was mega scared, which is not true. Nigerians were deceived. Now look at what you're asking. They're not trying to say the blame should not be put on Buhari. The blame should be put on a cabal. Can't you understand where this is going now?
Who are the cabal?
That's why I'm telling you, this is the same man who told us he was capable. He told us he was honest, he was this. Now, you're hearing stories like, oh, a lot of bad things happened. He doesn't need to blame Buhari. A cabal took over. Yet, he told us he was capable. He told us he was in charge. He was told us it was his administration. Now we are being told that no, he was not in charge. It is not his administration. He was not capable. Don't you understand that? If a man tells you one thing and suddenly what you see is not what he tells you, and what his family is now telling you runs counter to what he told you, that's why I'm telling you that
Dr. Katch, you
fundamentally dishonest man.
Yeah, yes. You haven't answered my question, and the question is, did you really believe there? Because even while Buhari was there, that name, I remember those words were used, cabal, and some persons were always fingered to be the super guys around Buhari. Did you believe there was a cabal? And if you do, who were these cabal?
Yes.
And again,
yes.
Did you believe this story? You know, whatever is coming out right now, or the fingering of a particular people called cabal is an escapist narrative to absolve Buhari of whatever happened under him.
It is an escapist narrative. You see, Tinubu, it was Tinubu's census that promoted his AGC, not a cabal. It is Tinubu's census that made him appoint somebody as his chief of staff, not a cabal. So when Tinubu starts to build a chemistry, a political chemistry around himself of people he brings in to rule. It is his senses that made him bring those people. If they now start walking around him, they are called members of his presidency. So if he doesn't have the capacity of the boss to say, no matter what you say, no matter what you suggest, the buck stops on my office. Before implementation, you will come to my office. So when you saw Tinubu said, okay, I'm going to promote my ADC. But when pressure came on him, it was the same Tinubu who withdrew because they told him this is going to destroy the rank and file understanding in the army.
Is it that you don't believe that there was a cabal under Buhari? Dr. Katch, is it that you don't believe there was a cabal?
The cabal, as you're saying right now, is an escapist theory. I'm trying to tell you that whatever happens, happens underneath the watch of the president. So don't tell me of cabal to not try to shift the blame away from Buhari. That's why I'm telling you, put the light on Buhari. Don't tell. That's why I'm playing the Tinubu analogy. If anything goes wrong with his presidency, it is Tinubu. You won't come tomorrow and say, hey, there's a cabal. A cabal took away the powers of Tinubu. A cabal started doing what Tinubu should do. No. It is the Buhari presidency. Buhari is the one who talks to us. Buhari told us that he's in charge. Why will the family come and tell us now he's not in charge? Yet the man told us he's in charge. That's why I told you the man was not honest. He was fundamentally dishonest, telling you that he's in charge when he wasn't in charge. What are we going to do? What do you do if a man tells you something that's contrary to what me and you are now hearing? What would you think? And you believed him because he was sold to us as a man of truth. And then they're not telling you, don't listen to that. The man was just lying. He wasn't in charge. Yet he told us he's in charge. Don't you understand what I'm trying to tell you? If a man tells you who he is, believe him the first time.
All right. Dr. Katch, we're due for a break now. When we return, we'll kick up from here. We've been speaking with Dr. Katch Onanuju, as a public affairs analyst and DG Heritage Center, on the life and times of the former President Muhammadu Buhari, based on the biography written about him by Dr. Charles Omole. We'll be taking the script break. When we return, we'll kick up from here. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. This is where we've been having honest conversation, deep, insightful conversation about the former statesman who's late now, late Muhammadu Buhari, was president of Nigeria before this particular administration. There was a biography released, from joint effort by his family and was documented by Dr. Charles Omole. And we've been talking to Dr. Katch Onanuju, who's a public affairs analyst and the DG Heritage Center right here. Dr. Katch, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here with you.
All right, let's talk about this book now. The accounts that we've seen or that we've heard about in the book, and especially from how Dr. Charles Omole put it, and saying that this and this and this that might have been an issue. The answers are found in the book. Let's talk about the book. Is it more? Do you feel that these accounts are the actual accounts, or they're just from another lens, from another point of view again? Do you see it as housekeeping of sorts?
I will tell you, it's a pushback from the family because there's too much mud out there against Buhari. So I see this as a